Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dev Diary, where today we're looking at a game about making viral videos. Wait, why does that sound so familiar? Well, before we get into things, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed today's video and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And remember to turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos. So the game Content Warning was a recent viral hit and is, well, hopefully by the time this video is released, is still going strong. Basically, it's a game about recording content for the internet in order to go viral, which, believe it or not, is actually very similar to a game I made on this very channel over 6 years ago. Now granted, my version was much less impressive and was far more cynical in nature, but the idea was to also film things to gain points. And so with the recent success of Content Warning, this gave me a great reason to go back to the idea and try again with all of the knowledge that I've gained since then. So, because most of the old world in Content Warning is monochrome, we're also going with a very simplistic monochrome color scheme. Though you will see occasional color usage, mostly red. Also, for any keen-eyed folk out there, this is a repurposed version of the 2D Lethal Company game that we made a while back, and we're going with 2D instead of 3D due to time constraints. Anyway, if you would like an in-depth look at the base code, including how the world generation is handled, a link to that video can be found in the description. Now, the gameplay is pretty similar to Content Warning. The player has the ability to enable and disable recording at any time with a left click. When recording, a timer begins counting to a max of 1 minute of footage, and the player will gain points for having monsters or dangers in direct line of sight, which is actually handled through a couple of functions. The first is a general vision check, which determines if something has direct line of sight. Both players and monsters use this to see each other. The second vision check allows us to establish a target for scoring purposes. See, each monster has a few key variables. Some are for things like how far their eyesight is, cooldowns for their actions, and most importantly, how many points filming each creature is worth. However, those points are only awarded when a monster is recorded under certain circumstances. Monsters in general go through the same routine. They will wait for the player to come within viewing distance, and if they are able to establish direct line of sight, the monster begins an internal countdown. When this countdown is concluded and line of sight still exists, the monster will attack. This will turn their sprite red, and it's during this moment that those points will be awarded if the player happens to be recording them. Now, we've got 4 different monsters. Our first monster is a tiny bug-like creature that'll slowly creep on the player, and will follow them around until they're given the slip. Touching these little creatures will hurt the player. The second monster is a turret-based creature that'll fire a bunch of projectiles at the player. Monster 3 is a bull-like creature that'll charge towards the player at dangerous speeds. And our final monster is the demon, who will follow the player much like the bug will. However, they are much faster than the bug, and when near enough to the player will detonate, causing a sizable explosion that can hurt the player. Speaking of which, when the player takes damage is when we use a greater deal of color and some crazy analog glitch effects for impact. However, the player can dodge many of these attacks by running using the shift key. This does cost stamina, which runs out quite quickly, but not running for at least a second will slowly replenish their stamina back to full, eventually. Now, you can help keep this channel running by supporting me on Patreon. Doing so can net you exclusive access to content and downloads, and even early access to Dev Diary videos before they're released on YouTube. So anyway, you can probably see how the push and pull of this game would work. The player needs to have direct line of sight to these monsters to earn points, and they need to purposely put themselves in danger to get the best shots. But that obviously comes at a larger risk, because if the player can see a monster, then the monster can most definitely see the player. Again, remember that they both use the same exact vision code, and this is actually why the monsters don't patrol. Originally, some of them were meant to patrol, but it ended up causing too much chaos. It was far too easy for a monster to sneak up on the player, which is probably where audio would come in handy, but for the sake of time, having the monsters remain still until activated worked best for the fun factor. And that's what this was, a fun return to an old idea thanks to a new release that also helped me redeem a previously cynical approach to a good idea. And as always, it would be fun to explore this idea further, but much like Lethal Company, the concept really lives by the monsters, and so I'm not sure how fun that would be as an extended series. Also, in case you were curious, there were plans to implement a replay system, but we'll be tackling that one on its own at a later date. Anyway, if a 2D content warning is something that you would like to see, certainly let me know. Also, have you played content warning? Do games like content warning and Lethal Company even appeal to you? As always, I would love to hear from you, so leave your thoughts in the comments. Well, with that said, brings us to the end of today's Dev Diary, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.